What's up, y'all? Y'all are listening to Living Corporate's flagship podcast. If you didn't know, Living Corporate helps organizations build employee engagement and market trust through data analytics and data transformation, our e-learning platform, and brand marketing storytelling. We're so excited for you to be here today. The conversation you're about to hear is going to connect the dots between employee experience and go-to-market effectiveness. If you're not ready, get ready. Here we go. Amanda Gooddall, what's going on?
Hey there. Yeah. It's been a wild year, right?
Listen, let me tell you, we were talking a little bit off mic. I stumbled across your content, just on my socials, right? And your analysis, you do a lot of analysis on hiring trends, executive level decision making, and you do a lot of analysis, just analysis on the impact of generative AI and its role in deciding who stays and goes at some of these multi-trillion-dollar enterprise organizations. I mean, we're going to get to all of that, but I think I just want to start with why this space and work for you? What was it that had you say, look, I want to really analyze these decisions, workforce trends, employee experience, why this work?
Yeah, great question. I've been the job chick for the last 20 something years at this point. And, I really started my career back kind of just helping executives, ironically, with their career path. And just over the years, dealing with it, I was seeing how everything was changing with the job market. I know everybody's really focused on what it is right now, and it's really bad. And it's gotten progressively worse over the years. So about 10 years ago, I started working with my clients to go, okay, if this is not how we're applying, we need to look and see what we should do. If this isn't working to apply online, because it really did start 5-10 years ago, where it just wasn't working. There was a disconnect in reaching with the right recruiters, and I don't know exactly what happened, but I started looking into companies and I started, really talking to my clients and saying, okay, you need to look at the PRs. You need to know what's going on in the company, not what they want today, but where they're going in the future. And that's where we need to build your resume. That's where we need to build your whole career focus on, not just, oh, look, I'm lining up with the job descriptions, go me. So we really kind of started looking at that and I got really fascinated by it. And I'm a person that loves going down rabbit holes. So when I started looking at what's actually happening, it just blew wide open, honestly. And so I started really focusing my work on not so much on just working on the career paths with individuals. And, like I said, I usually worked with director on up. That was pretty much my focus. And, I changed into let's do an analysis to go, okay, don't apply to this company if they're going to have layoffs. And there's easy ways to look at that. And it's surprising to me that today people still aren't really looking at it. They're just looking at surface PRs on CNBC and things like that. But that's kind of how I really fell into doing what I do. And then I started building different financial modelings and things like that to start aiming out on projections for layoffs and, got a lot of legal teams interested in what I'm doing and investors interested in what I'm doing because I'm being able to call a layoff about 3 to 6 months out. That's pretty solid. And, and even up to a year on some, because it all comes back down to the workforce. And everybody just seems to go, well, it's just about unemployment. Well, it's not just about unemployment. It's actually about what companies are doing, the hiring, the exits, why they're doing it. What are they actually saying? So like I said, I go down rabbit holes and my analysis is let's pull every weird fact. And every time I find a weird fact, I'm like, but why? But why? What is going on? So I go down that rabbit hole. So yeah, I'm like that person from, I don't know what the show is because I haven't actually watched it, where they have the crazy board and they're just well, this is
you talking about Always Sunny in Philadelphia where he's pointing at and it's
there you go.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's my mind when I start like going through all of this. So, between building the modeling and starting to provide this analysis and actually really looking at what's happening, as opposed to just looking at sentiment online. Everybody points me to the layoff or to Blind or to Reddit. And yes, that's great. Take a lot of it with a grain of salt. A lot of people say a lot of things. Some of it's true. And some of it you go, wait a minute, that lines up with this. So it's been really fun just to kind of focus on that. So I've really kind of moved out of the career side of things and just really focused on the workforce intelligence and actually looking at real data and what's really going on in companies. And, it's amazing what is out there publicly, but it's hard to find unless you know what you're looking at. And yeah, it is just a case of finding all of those weird facts. What are those shock factors? What are the things that don't make sense? Then you go find out why. So here I am now.
When you talk about like connecting all these random dots, it's funny because I think you're being overly humble, I would say, because what you're describing is systems thinking, right? It's the ability to understand the forest for the trees. It's the ability to see the patterns within seemingly disparate and disconnected actions or behaviors. And what I love and hate, I'm gonna be transparent about the work that you do, is I love that it's so thorough. It's obviously driven by expertise. It's knowledgeable, it's accurate. What I hate about it is it confirms all of my anxieties, right? I think the overarching question I have for you is, are we cooked or not? Because it feels like we are cooked.
It's not great. Let's put it that way. I don't think it's like a done deal. I don't think the timer is beeping really loud or the fire alarm's going off yet, but it's not fantastic. When you look at all the projections that I do, I honestly only publish a small amount of what I see because I don't think the world's ready for what we all kind of feel. Like you said, we're not there yet to be able to look at it. And a lot of people are just like, oh, you put so much negativity into the world. I'm like, no, you need to know what's actually going on. So therefore, when you are looking at your career or your next step, or you're in a job and going, I need to get out, where do I need to look? Utilize that information for good, and see what's actually happening. It's negative, but it doesn't have to be utilized as a negative. Use it as a positive stepping stone to go into the next roles. If you're knowing a company is about to have a hiring freeze because I put out some negative post on X or Substack, then utilize that and don't apply to them. Don't apply, even though the job is really cool, or you've talked to the Connect recruiter. I've met so many people that have done that, and I don't know, it's crazy. But do I think we're cooked? Not yet, but I don't think it's going well. I think we are going to see this very long instability that's just going to keep going. And everything that I can see, and, I can probably say for about the next year out, it doesn't look great for most industries. Now, there's some industries that are going to do better than others, and, and it's going to ebb and flow always. And, if there's world wars or whatever, obviously that throws everything into the pot. So, can only be so accurate on the numbers. But, companies don't make their decisions. They didn't make their layoff decision last week. They made it 18 months ago, a year ago. And most people don't realize that. They're just like, oh, he said this, so now I just hate the CEO. No, they were thinking about that a long time ago. Companies know what they're doing long time in advance. So to be able to be as a job seeker, just a consumer, looking for jobs, it's great to know stuff in advance. So, we're not cooked yet. That's my end statement. We're not there yet.
I appreciate the candor. And to your point about the critique of you being negative, it's not negative. It's just information, right? It's just information isn't in itself negative or positive. It's just hey, it's what you do with it, right? A couple summers ago, The Floor is Lava was a huge game, right? It was a huge game to play at home. It's huge on Netflix. The floor is lava. That's as a point of information. Don't you want to know the floor is lava so that you now know how to navigate, right? My I have 4 kids. 2 of them are 4-month-old twins, but the others are 5 and 2.5. Oh, it really actually turns 3 next month. So So it's really, she's basically, I got a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and 2 4-month-olds. But I remember with my oldest, like, it was like, okay, floor is lava. We're going to jump on the couch. We're going to jump on the futon. We're going to jump on the pillow. Like, and it's important, I believe, to like, just to know the truth. Like, and you know what I love about, what I think is really dangerous, and like, it's something really insidious about sometimes people who claim to be well-meaning, is they hide the truth from folks because they don't respect them enough to give it to them, because they don't believe they can handle it. And I want to just say, like, I respect truth tellers, because irrespective of whatever the truth is being told, at least the person respects you enough and respects you and expects you to handle it like an adult, right? As opposed to infantilizing you and just lying to you, right? Because you're right. Like, I can't, it's so funny. Like, as I've stepped away from corporate America, and now like living corporate is like my business, and I'm providing like different data transformation and e-learning and brand storytelling services to organizations. But like, it's interesting being on the outside looking into some of these things, because like, you can kind of see the dichotomy clearer, right? So yes, they make these huge sweeping decisions, and they want you sometimes as the employee to feel like they just made a decision like last week. And you're absolutely right. They made that decision. The board of directors had to sign off on that a year ago, 2 quarters ago, right? And like, I think one thing that continues to stick out to me about your analysis and the reports that you post, that you share, is really about like the role of artificial intelligence, right? I recall a discussion I had with Glassdoor's head of people, Danny Guillory, about a year or plus ago. And we were talking about the role of generative AI. And he agreed that generative AI should be employee enriching and not employee replacing. And yet, like, as we fast forward to 2025, we're seeing wholesale, like, just complete whole groups of workers completely be eliminated, right? And like, when I say groups, I really am talking about that entry to early mid-level role, those entry to mid-level individual contributor roles be eliminated. And we're also seeing like the mid to low level managerial class start to be eliminated as well, right? Like, which is terrifying to me when you think about those are the groups, and that's oftentimes the entry point for people to actually get into other leadership classes. But oftentimes that's the place where those in the margins often find opportunity. And so, like, talk to me a little bit about, if you like, as much as you're comfortable, about what you're seeing organizations do as it pertains to their workforce planning and generative AI.
Yeah, I think honestly, there's a division overall, and I can kind of see this in the way the workforce data is showing up as well. But there's a division. Some companies are pushing it. You have, the Salesforce thing that just happened recently, where they're like, oh yeah, I got rid of like 4,000 people and we're moving to AI. And you see different companies push this AI concept, and they're, Klarna, prime example. Then they realize, oh, it's not so great. People do like talking to humans. Mm-hmm. Surprising, amazing. Who knew? Hire me as your consultant. I charge less than McKinsey. I could have told you that, but it's one of those things where some companies are like, no, we're going with the AI. They have, I don't know, they must have some management consulting or somebody behind them to go, this is your playbook. This is what we're doing. We're going to say AI, and this is your story. Keep to it. And then you see some that utilize it in their press release or their earnings, and like, oh yeah, we're going to put more money into, our AI investment fund, and that's where we're having to cut back and blah, blah, blah. But overall, what I am seeing is neither. Companies really aren't focusing that hard. Now, yes, they are letting people go, and they are pushing AI. And, for all of the talk of, oh, AI is never going to take your job. Well, here we are today, right. and look at where layoffs this year blamed on that. Now, some of them are due to AI. And, obviously, I get it. Companies are there to make money. That's their job. CEOs' job is to make money for their shareholders. I understand that. So, overall, you have to make, the right calls for margins and things like that. But it's not about that at the end of the day. It's the optics of what's happening. And I think that's actually the real problem that we are seeing, because people are losing faith in companies, corporates or not, because they are utilizing the word AI and this Gen AI. And we're going to put all these systems in there, and it is not helping them. It's taking over their jobs. So as a society, and I think this is global, we are losing faith in that because the optics look so bad. And I think people want transparency. If you're really replacing us with AI, let's see it. Let's see it work. Or if we're introducing AI, why aren't companies like helping people do it? They're like, oh yeah, you need to keep focusing on AI. Or you see these ultimatums. I saw this one with the Microsoft one a few months ago, where it was just like, oh, they changed some of their technical sellers, I believe, into like support engineers. And they're like, you have to immediately jump into AI. It's AI first. Have you trained us to this point? I don't know all the details, but they were shocked. The technical sellers I spoke to were just like, what's happening? Let alone my job title change. So there's all kinds of problems that I don't know where the disconnect is between HR or the C-suite leaders just not knowing how to gel it all together. But I feel like a lot of people are really lost because they don't know what to do. And yes, the whole concept now is like, oh, well, just keep learning AI on your free time, or, while you're laid off, like learn all the systems. It doesn't work like that. And anybody that knows that, knows you go into a company and you should be trained on whatever they want you to do, right? I'm not seeing that happening right now. And that goes for just the regular job, as opposed, and including the Gen AI concepts and all the agentic AI work that's going on and stuff that they want us to partner with and have these synergies with and stuff like that. Can you tell my sarcasm with it all? But it's frustrating. And I think people are losing hope and they're struggling on knowing what to do. What do companies really want? Because none of it makes sense. None of it lines up. And companies there's not a solid answer across the board or even across an industry. So, I don't know what companies are thinking. I would love to be a fly on the wall to all of them,
But to your point though, right? Like for this to be such I've heard you use the term corporate revolution. I've seen other people say this is like a reformation or a reconstruct, or our second reconstruction, and there's some cultural elements to that term for sure. But to say that it is not capitalist in context would also be wrong. It is, but a large part of what we're seeing in this revolution, corporate revolution, is obviously capitalistic, and whatever you want to call this other season, there's capital at the center of it. I'm curious when you talk about AI and like the scale and degree of some of these changes. Recently, I saw that you dropped some information about the Oracle layoffs, and there being like virtually no talk about it. We were not seeing public statements about it, and yet we know that thousands of folks are being impacted. These changes are so aggressive, and yet we don't see a lot of change management around the decisions, right? So I'm biased. I'm coming from PricewaterhouseCoopers and Accenture and Capgemini and other consulting firms where I was leading change management, organizational transformation. And so I know the stats that organizational decisions that do not have change management have a failure rate of over 75%. And that's just a fact. And yet, like, we're seeing that happen. And to your point also, we have leaders who don't have the technical acumen somehow all of a sudden be the leading voice in how powerful AI is going to be in shaping the future of their company. And it's like, well, what does AI mean in the organizational context of what y'all do? Like, and what kind of training does it look? What are you providing for your organization? Because just slapping AI on something or slapping a chat GPT bot on something not only is not going to be conducive to success, but actually could open you up to a wide array of risks, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so you're right. Like there's something else happening. I agree. I don't see things matching up. And we kind of talked off mic about this, but I want to say it here too. It almost feels like because people are using, I think some people are using AI as a cover, right? Like a lot of these organizations, they're claiming to use AI, but like nothing's actually functionally changing. They're just like offshoring a bunch of people, right? Like so, it's like, hey, we're gonna like lay off like these 7,000 hypothetically 7,000 U.S. employees. We're gonna pick up another 12,000 offshore, maybe nearshore, but mostly offshore talent to supplement this work. I mean, we're seeing with all types of brands. I mean, Nielsen is guilty of doing that. There's plenty of brands that have been continuously moving more and more of their employee base to other parts of the world that are paying at wages significantly smaller than the ones in the U.S. It feels as if these executive leaders are somebody has told them what the end point is, and there just seems to be no real desire to reinvest and build with employees here in the United States and really to extract as much money as they can before the bottom falls out. I mean, am I being like overly critical or pessimistic in saying that?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, you are seeing that, and I think you were spot on when you just said that the whole corporate revolution is very aggressive, and that's the point. And that's when I created that phrase. Somebody asked me that, and it's funny. I've been working on a book with that, and and that was actually my phrase for it all because it's about a rapid shift that scales society in a way that we're not necessarily prepared for. It used to be the people that would create revolutions to change things. Well, now companies are just like, oh, we're just going to do it this way. And it's changing across the board. Looking at the workforce data, it's wild to look at how they scaled and just going back to like the pandemic time. So 2019 to now, how they scaled, where they laid off. And I know a lot of people are saying, oh no, they're still laying off because of overhiring, after the pandemic. No. That happened. That already happened. But you can actually watch this peak on charts and you can line up. I just did all the Mag 7 actually. And you can watch all of this. You can see where they started laying off, and then you can see where it tailed off completely for U.S. workers and where it went across or it grew for offshoring, nearshoring, whatever non-American work you want to call it. And, so honestly, and I know a lot of people really focus on the H-1Bs here. And yes, that is an issue. It's optics at the time where so many Americans are out of work, struggling to find jobs. I think today, what was it? There's more people unemployed in the U.S. today than there are job openings.
Wow.
For the first time since April 2021. That just came out today. I think it's worse than that. I think it's worse than we even think it is. But that's diving into BLS numbers, and that's a whole nother conversation we can do another day. But when you look at all of this and you actually see what is happening with the scope of jobs, it's no wonder people are struggling. And at the end of the day, people don't care what the unemployment rate is if they can't get a call back on a job they're highly qualified for. When those jobs are being listed, and companies are maybe bringing you in for an informal interview or something, and then you don't hear back or whatever. And then you look at all the jobs that are available offshore, especially. It's very easy to look at like the Mag 7 just as a general snapshot to see what's going on. And you see the jobs that used to be in Seattle are now in Bangalore for a third of the cost. There's a big change happening, and companies, like I said, it is a corporate revolution. They just went, no, we're doing this, and they are focusing on margins. Companies are focused on scaling margins over scaling teams these days, and I don't see that changing anytime soon because profits are awesome. I get that. Investors are loving it. The stock market's loving it. I mean, look what's going on. Do I think it can keep going higher and higher and higher and the bubble doesn't pop? No, I don't. When that happens, I'm not sure, but you're right. I believe companies they do know some kind of an end game, and you could go down so many conspiracy theories with this, and a lot of people think, oh, companies realize, oh, UBI is coming, or they just expect UBI is coming. And this is why they're doing it, to make the most amount of profit before they have to contribute to UBI, or, it's just over, and the market kind of comes back down to reality. But whatever it happens to be, the workforce as a whole is struggling. And I find it interesting bringing into AI into this, when you're talking about all the American jobs being offshored, and let's just say to China and India, those are the two biggest areas overall for offshoring and headquarters and stuff like that. But when you look at that, and then you hear TCS had 12,000 layoffs. And the workers there are like, wait a minute, how are we getting laid off? And it's due to AI. And the companies are now, they're saying that, workers in India are getting laid off due to AI. And they're bringing that in. So is that real AI, or is that let's push it to another country? I don't know. There's possibility. So I think a lot of that is AI. But is it driving it to Vietnam, for instance? I know Apple is moving. Believe it's Apple that's moving into Vietnam more. Is it cheaper? I'm not sure. I haven't really gone down those rabbit holes with it. But, companies want margin. They want those profits. And, watching, the insiders sell their shares and stuff like that, because I'm all about that, because you can actually see a lot of that. And that does translate to what's happening with the workforce. So I really watch that. And, yes, a lot of it's just vesting and, a divorce settlement or some domestic something. So they're splitting up their shares. Mm-hmm. But you can still watch the patterns of what's going on. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories we could go on about all of this and what's happening.
I mean, for me, to your point about like the employment rate and people saying, oh, what's this, and that. I really believe that like in about 10 to 15 years, economists are going to come out with new points of measurement, because saying the employment rate is low, or saying whatever the case is, but then like you know that you haven't been able to find a job in 10 months, or that like your company just laid off a bunch of people, and so they don't match. So at a certain point, we have to identify better levers. I think those are really great levers for like political messaging or corporate, like large enterprise to enterprise messaging. But when you talk about the experience of the actual worker, of the individual, of the citizen, then, or of the worker, it just doesn't fit, right? I'm curious about, as we talk about, to your point about like they think something's coming. I mean, I don't understand what could be coming. So why I say that, I mean, when you think about like the political levers and pressure, so you have of our two-party system, and it's not a politics podcast, y'all. Y'all know this. We're talking about this in the context of work and the landscape of work. In this two-party system, you have one party that's like anti-regulation, pro like market realization almost at any cost. You have another party that is more corporatist and more of a partner, but definitely not like anti-business, and certainly not anti-capitalist. So I question, like, where is the regulatory lever arm or whatever that actually stops any of this, right? Like even this idea of like the market eventually crashing, because I've seen like other points of analysis where it's like, hey, before these great stock crashes, it was right around this point, like we're right there, like we're in the same, we're almost like the exact same place where it's like, my God, like the markets have never been higher, and then it's like just off a cliff. I'm not even saying that I think that that's going to happen, only because the wrong people would lose too much wealth if that happened today. So I don't know if we're going to see that kind of crash again, but I just don't believe this. History would tell us it still isn't sustainable. And so like, I think I just have those questions of like, I don't understand what is our recourse. I mean, you're saying you don't think that we're cooked yet, but you also just said there's more jobless people looking for jobs than there are jobs available. So like, what do you make of that? Like, I don't like beyond like there's being some type of French Revolution. What's stopping these companies from just continuing to do what they're doing?
Like I said, we're cooking. We're just not cooked yet. We're not done. Turkey's not done yet, and that's, I think that's the worrying part, because and like I said earlier, I think we're just going to stay at this peak level of just
uncertainty,
utter chaos for a long time. And it's not political. There's always deals going on. And for everybody that goes, oh, this happened during this administration or this administration, I'm like, no, this has been going on for a long time. Do you want my data? I can show you my data. Corporates run in their own world, and the deals are done in a back room and they figure out what they're going to do. This is not new. This is more open, I'd say, right now. So people are seeing it. And I think, the way X is and things like that, people are just aware of it more, because we're all just sitting there shouting at the top of our lungs, all the little things that we're seeing. When it stops, I don't know. It's funny because I have a lot of investors that I work with and provide memos to and things like that. And their big thing, number one, they love the workforce angle on, how to trade, which some people call me a trader, because I'm just like, no, somebody's going to make money. They got to do it, company, we don't want companies to fail. So, but investors want to know, yes, when to trade, but they are more focused on when to get out. And I know that's always the thing. Obviously, you can't have greed go too far, or else you're just going to crash and burn. But because of the way the workforce is working right now, and you have all these activist investors coming in, it's a matter of like, okay, if this company is working with this activist investor, when's the stop point? Because they come in to make money, right? So there is a lot of that with the optics and with the way the market is running. And you can actually watch that in some of the companies that I do provide data on. And you can just watch this ebb and flow, and you can see when it starts going down, and it completely ties to the workforce. So it's very interesting just to see how the different markets are playing. Legal is running around going, oh my gosh, what's happening? And corporates are just making money and checking out and cashing out their money. And investors are just like, they're watching like a hawk, because the smart ones, they know there's a limit on this. It can't keep going. And because of what's happening in the world, and, with administrations and just with corporates in general, they will all have their peak moment. We're seeing that with NVIDIA right now. I mean, what are they, 4 trillion yet? Or are they still 3? I don't know.
That's 2, yeah.
It's one or the other, but it's insane to look at that and to go, I'm sorry, you're how much of the world's GDP right now? It's that kind of concept, but it all comes down to labor architecture and how companies are going to do this. When AI doesn't work, when companies realize the game plan that they did create for their Gen AI isn't actually working, which we will see in certain companies, it's going to be a case of which companies made the right decision. Because we don't know. AI is not new, but it's new in this realm of how we're dealing with stuff.
Exactly.
So, who's going to come out winners and losers? We don't know. And that's going to dictate a lot of what goes on in the stock market, a lot of what goes on in regulatory information. That's going to make go out a lot with what happens with, policy deals, that we're hearing about these days. Oracle being one of them, and then having the layoffs. It's just like, what? Make this make sense. But, we're going to keep seeing all of that. And no matter who's in office, no matter what's going on, and, minus some, drastic war or something that's going on globally, it's just going to keep going, and it's going to keep doing this. But, and I think, overall as a worker mindset, we need to just change and realize the corporates don't care about us. I mean, I don't know if they ever did, but, loyalty was always the conversation before, right? But we need to realize that we are in it for ourselves. We need to protect ourselves and have that mindset change of, once you're in a job, be looking for another one. I get it. It's good to have loyalty at a company, but they're not going to be loyal to you. So yes, do your work, do the best you can, because it's for your career and where you can go next. Always be looking for a job. We need to get into that mindset where our work that we do is almost contract based. Yes, we're employed, we're salaried, whatever, but we have to be ready to go in 3 months.
Yeah.
They can lay off in 3 months. And I see so many people. I actually had one person, she got employed, I think it was at Boeing, and she got laid off, and 6 months later she got hired, and then they laid her off 2 months later.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just, but this happens.
Yeah.
This isn't just a one-off. And, and people just need to realize that. And that's why, when I put out all this, craziness that's happening with layoffs and these rumors and everything that I'm hearing, or where I can go, I'm watching these companies, you should be watching them too. Don't apply to them. I can't say that, stronger. Don't apply to them, because, it's not that I'm against companies at all, or their growth or what they're doing, but from a workforce standpoint, from a sanity standpoint of being able to have a job and know that you're applying to a company that's pretty solid right now, you need to know that. So look at my negative data and negative analysis and read between the lines and go, oh, this is where I would fit, or this is not the right company right now, but maybe in 6 months, because this is what they're focusing on. If I go work at this company A for now, maybe I can go apply to company B later, even though they're doing layoffs right now, but later I'm going to have the right skills for them. That's how we need to be thinking, regardless of what administrations do, regardless of what corporates or the stock market does. You have to look out for yourself. And if we're not doing that, then I don't know how to help job seekers. I just don't. I've worked with over 25,000 over my career. And, that is my biggest piece of advice these days. It's not about networking. It's about focusing on what's happening, reading between the lines. And that should be the biggest part of your job search, is actually just knowing what's going on and looking out for yourself.
I don't really know how to end the pod better. I mean, it's been Amanda Gooddall. Amanda, before we let you go, where can people learn more about you? Where can they find you? Where can they engage your content, check out your reports, and stay plugged up and plugged in?
Yeah, definitely. You can stay plugged in with all my stuff on X. I'm the Job Chick. I'm the only one on there with pink hair. You really can't miss me. My website, thejobchick.com. And of course, my Substack is the Insider Edge Report. So, yeah, I'm kind of everywhere and do a little bit of different everything. But if you ever need any information or whatever, DM me on X, and I can always pull a company too. So happy to do that when I can, when I have time. So I want to try to help people as much as possible, and that is the focus. And I'm so glad people are aware these days of what is actually happening. I love that we're having these conversations now, as difficult as they are, as hard as they are, especially when we're having all of these mass layoffs. It's important to be talking about it at the end of the day.
I can't thank you enough, again, for respecting the worker, the common worker, enough to tell them the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's not even when it's not quote unquote positive. Thank you. And I 100% agree. We have to continue to be mindful and conscious and aware of what these ultra mega enterprise organizations are doing, not in the spirit of some conspiratorial, hand wringing, but in the spirit of our own sustainability and the well-being of our family. So, Amanda, thank you so much, y'all. Make sure y'all click the links in the show notes. Till next time, peace.
Living Corporate is a podcast by Living Corporate LLC. Our logo was designed by David Dawkins. Our theme music was produced by Ken Brown. Additional music production by Antoine Franklin for Musical Elevation. Post-production is handled by Jeremy Jackson. Got a topic suggestion? Email us at livingcorporatepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us online on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and living-corporate.com. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned.